would be a
My
dent
sense
in
is
terms
no.
of
I'm
sentiment.
sure there will be a decent amount of recoveries, upgrades and write-offs in this number. So it's in any case we know the outer limit. The gross NPL itself has risen by what, 72 to 98 is what, 26,000 crore.
It's 25,300.
Yeah. So in that, if you deduct write-offs, recoveries, then it can't be more than 20,000 crore is my guess. And I think that would be something the market is okay with. Okay, why don't we get the expert in? Siddharth Purohit of Angel Broking has joined us. Siddharth, we know that the gross NPLs have risen by 25,000 crores, or they have risen by 140 basis points to 6.5%. The provision coverage ratio is 60.69. I would assume those are the crucial numbers you want. What would you call this number? Good, bad, indifferent, in line, better than expected?
See, it's almost in line, I would say, because the gross NPA was as expected to go up early. But if you see at net level, the gross NPA has gone up by more than 25,000 CR.
Yes.
And the provisioning number 13,000 looks a little lower what they have done. Probably they should have done higher provisioning to keep the PCR at same level. So possibly provisioning number looks little lower. Possibly they should have taken higher provisioning. And I was just, if you see the other income number also looks on a little higher side. So the bifurcation needs to be seen. The other income numbers is pretty higher than what I was basically expecting.
Yeah, in fact, just to point out what this other income is, the other income includes a 2,033 crore rupee amount on account of exchange gains, basically on repatriation of funds from the foreign offices to India.
Which they do regularly, which many banks do regularly. So
but
it's expected.
Would it be a little on the higher side as the experts are pointing out? I mean, not that it is a very material number in terms of overall asset quality.
The important point is that in Bank of India, the GNPA had gone up because the total amount of loans given itself had shrunk by about 40,000 crore. Here it is clearly a growth of balance sheet. SBI has not been scared out of his wits to the extent that it wants to contract its balance sheet. Balance sheet has grown from 20 lakh crore to 22 lakh crore and advances or loans have gone up from 13 lakh crore to 14.8 lakh crore. So that's not a small growth in advances at all. 13 lakh crore, 13.0 has become 14.83. You may want to just do that math. That will be about 10% or more, a little more than 10%, maybe 15% growth in loans. 12% growth in loans. 12% growth in loans. So, I mean, they've boldly gone there, expanded, given loans where they think
okay, we have the slippages figure, 30,312 figure, 312 crores. So that is at the upper end of what we had in fact polled. So the street was expecting 30,000 crores on the upper limit, and that's what they've come out with. So 30,312 crores is what they've reported this quarter. I think the AQR has been significantly worse for them this quarter than it was in the previous quarter. A lot seems to have been taken in this quarter, and 70%, at least 70% was expected to be from the AQR in terms of slippages. In fact, Siddharth, let's just come across to you with this figure, 30,312 crores on the slippage figure this time for State Bank of India.
Yeah, 30,000 is on a little higher side, but I think going by the trend, it was evident that it would go up. But earlier, I was expecting that possibly somewhere around 25,000 CR of slippages could come.
So would you say that there has been not much by way of recoveries and upgrades, right?
Yeah. Yes. In fact, in last quarter also, the recovery and upgradations were pretty low. And going by the gross NPA number, if you see, I mean, it seems that recovery and upgradation won't have been much higher.
Okay, actually they've used a lot of floating provisions as well. Up to 50% of their countercyclical provisioning held by them, they've used it for making specific NPA provisions, which is why their provision is lower, because they've used their earlier floating provision, countercyclical provision buffer and I think that is accordingly the bank has utilized the CCPB, that is countercyclical provision buffer of 1149 crore. Of which 382 crores was provision cover has been used for specific NPA provisioning, which is why, Siddharth, to answer you, the provisioning is a little less, and they have chosen to post a higher profit.
And there's a tax write-back also of 245 crores. I know it's mandatory, but nonetheless, I mean not mandatory, it's allowed, but nonetheless, the PBT is around 1,000 odd crores for State Bank of India, and then there's a tax write-back of around 245 crores this quarter as well.
Okay, I'm trying to see if there is any more other income. About repatriation you've already spoken about, provision coverage we have spoken about. Okay, that's all we have now. Now we have to wait for we have to wait for, I think, Ritu Singh, who is our correspondent in Calcutta, to give us more details. The first thing that she has told us is that it is a 30,000 crore slippage. We will wait for more. She will give us more about write-offs and one-offs. I assume that now the next big figure we have to wait for is what is the SMA2 number, what is the restructured assets that have slipped into NPL already, and therefore what is the standard restructured that is still left. Any other details about SDRs and 525s will also be interesting, though we know from the market that there are not that many strategic debt restructuring cases anyways. Sure. Okay, Siddharth, now that you have a little more, any more comments?
I think given the decline in PCR, I believe, and as you told that counter-buffering provisioning has been used, possibly FY17 also they will have to keep on raising the provisions to at least keep up the provisioning coverage ratio. So the bottom line number should remain under pressure in FY17 also. And as you told that possibly SMA2 number, gives more clarity. And another thing we need to know is that how much of the slippages has come from the standard restructured book. That will give you more clarity whether this has happened from the regular book or more from the restructured book.
Sure. So Siddharth, actually let me also bring in Gaurang Shah and Bajrang Bafna into this conversation as well. Gaurang, the initial numbers are out. Of course, we are waiting for more asset quality internals. But what kind of a watch list expectation are you working with State Bank of India, given what we've seen from some of the other larger lenders?
So, first of all, a disclosure, we are maintaining a positive coverage of State Bank of India. And actually, if you go to see, after the numbers, the stock has not really reacted. And it is holding ground. So my sense is that whatever worse...
Actually, it has, Gaurang. In fact, let me hold you there. Let's pull up the intraday chart. That 30,000 crore rupees slippage, actually 30,300 crore rupees slippage, that's a good 5,000 crore rupees in excess of the market's worst imagination. The stock has reacted. It's cooled off very, very significantly. Volatile
this
last
was the worst imagination. This
30,000
was the worst that the street was
and those
expecting.
worst dreams have been realized, unfortunately, in Q4.
So the market is now in the mood that it believes if the worst is out, that's good for the stock, because then there is less poison to come out. So I don't think 6.5% will be seen as a heart attack by itself. It will, because that means they've expanded their balance sheet as well, which is why although they've increased their NPLs, they've increased the total amount of loans lent as a percentage of the book. Therefore 6.5 is not as ugly as perhaps many would have feared. Look at the other numbers we got, Bank of India, PNB, all of them are in double digits.
10%.
It was never expected that SBI would go to that level, but still 6.5. In the worst times, SBI, ICICI soon after the Lehman crisis had even gone to 7.5% in terms of gross NPLs. State Bank has not gotten there. I mean, I'm trying to look at the positive way the street might be looking at it. The street is in a good mood. Also, it believes that when the management meets, there will be definite, hints about what is in the watch list. So they will make up their mind at that time.
Lata, you mentioned the street's good mood. I just want to bring up the Nifty as well. While SBI goes through its motions, the market is again racing towards the high of the day. 8150 is almost there on the screens once again. A whole 1% increase. So the way these numbers are being digested, important to keep that context in mind as well. Gentlemen, if we could just have your watch list expectations, all three of you.
Can I just, 1 minute before that, Gaurang, since you also watch all the other stocks, is this a relief rally for the markets that, okay, now the big news of the day is out. We know what is SBI. Good, bad or indifferent, we know it. So is this why the market is racing higher?
Is this a question to me, Lata?
Yes, Gaurang.
So my sense is that yes, large part of the poison is out, and the concern was that it should not be a number which will, like you rightly mentioned, which will send shivers down the spine or give somebody a heart attack. So my sense is that now that this is out, the uncertainty is away, and we should possibly have some stability. And when I was talking to Surabhi, my point was that it's not like the stock has corrected 5-10% on the downside. It has left of course, it has surrendered certain higher levels, but it is holding on to the green zone. So my sense is that yes, this could be one of the worst sets, and possibly gradually you should see some improvement coming in with the HUR and everything in place. And one would also like to hear the commentary from the management as to how they want to strengthen balance sheets, status going forward from here on.
Okay, actually, if you look at the way the stock has moved, it is pretty much where it was before the numbers were announced. What is the average of the day before the stock, before the details came? It was about 185, 187 rupees. So it went to 190 perhaps, and then came back to 187. And that's all it has done in the last 3 minutes or 5 minutes since the numbers have come. Okay, so Gaurang, let's get back to what Surabhi was asking, which is really the most important question now. What will you want to hear from the management in terms of the
recovery process and how they are getting to gain the strength back into the balance sheet? That I think it is very important. And given that you have initiatives taken by the government, and of course the management has provided for whatever has gone wrong up till now, maybe you might see some stress or spillovers in the next quarter or two. But there should be visible amount of strength. The numbers should not deteriorate. At least that is what I would want to see.
Okay, well, surprisingly, Lata, the stock is up 9% week to date. It's even above its 50-day moving average. So, despite those 30,000 crores in terms of slippages,
I was just going to point that to Gaurang. We started today with a 7% gain on the stock week to date in the last 4 days. And it's put on another 1.5%. Actually, it had put on 2% today. So, it's still up 7% as you point out for the week. So, the market still thinks that the worst has gotten priced in. It can't get worse, and things are turning for steel and power this result season. So perhaps fresh big bombs are not waiting to happen. Siddharth, what would you want to hear in terms of a watch list?
As I told you earlier that possibly from the slippages number, as we know that large part would have come from AQR, but what I would like to know that how much standard NPA has come from the restricted book more than the SMA2 and all, because that will give an indication whether these slippages high numbers are actually from the regular book or from the restricted book. We have seen. So maybe that will give an indication that what could be the provisioning requirement for FY17. But having said that, I believe that possibly the lot of negativity would be out right now because large part of NPS are being recognized during this last 2 quarters.
Okay, Siddharth, what's your FY17 estimated book value for SBI?
As I told you, possibly we'll listen to the management and then revise it, because it would be fair to take consideration given the guidance. So we'll look for more clarity and then revise it accordingly.
Okay, Bafna, what's your what would you want to hear from the management? What is your watch list worry number?
As per my estimates and understanding, I think, SBI has done fairly better. 30,000 crore number, is much better considering, how the cleaning has happened in PNB or maybe for that matter Bank of India and all. So for that matter, SBI has done reasonably well, and that is why the stock is holding on. But considering the size of, let's say 14 lakh crore book and just 1 lakh crore book is NPA, I simply disagree that the poison is still out. There is more poison is about to come. I have already indicated that the pain in the system is roughly to the tune of 12 to 13 lakh crores, and we have seen the similar has panned out, by most of the managements, be it PNB, be it Bank of Baroda, be it Bank of India. We have seen, they have accepted that around, 15 to 20% of the book is bad, and either through, restructuring or through NPAs or through, SDR and 525. But for SBI, I think the numbers are pretty less still. So, there could be several reasons for it, but I hope that the worst is not behind for SBI. Still,
almost 12% is recognized, isn't it? 60 their total loan book is 14 lakh crore. 60% is usually to corporates. So of that 60% would mean 8 lakh crore. Of 8 lakh crore, 1 lakh crore is recognized as bad loans. But that is 12%.
I am saying the total bank loans on the system is around, if we'll talk about 15 numbers, it was 60 lakh crores, and running the jet score, it is 12 lakh crores. So almost 20% of the overall book is bad. And you see for PNB and all, PNB has said 17.5% of the book, including just GNPA and restructured book, is 17.5%.
So your point is taken. You're expecting it to be worse.
And Lata, just to add here, I was listening to the conversation that you guys were having with the gentleman from Centrum earlier, and that statement really kind of rung in my ears as well. It's exactly the point that Bajrang Bafna is making right now, that fair enough, you recognize the problem, and that's great news. So whether it is 6.5% of your book or 10 to 11% for certain the banks, resolution is another matter altogether. So I wonder how the market's mood is going to be in terms of reacting to the whole resolution.
So we have two views here.
Actually, these are really dismal numbers, right? I mean, it's just that the market is in a frame of mind that it's not reacting to even these numbers.
I think it is known.
Dismal but known. I mean,
dismal but known. Dismal but known. But not anything that should warrant any kind of rise in SBI stock. You could say that okay, these numbers don't warrant a 5 or 6% or a 10% fall that we normally see. But to have a rise in the stock, I think is a bit overdone, just because of the kind of market dynamics that we have in today's trade.
So Anuj, maybe what you're saying is that, assuming or hypothetically saying, at a 7750 or 7700 index level, the reaction to these numbers perhaps would have been different.
Of course, clearly, and if I have to stick my neck out, I don't see SBI crossing say 200 in a hurry. In fact,
that is a distance.
In fact, I won't be surprised if it has to pull back a bit.
On the contrary, you should expect a bit of a downside.
Exactly.
It's because the market is in a cheerful mood, it's not falling. So there's no question of it going to 200 in a hurry, I would think.
The market is just going to wait for the commentary from the management. Watch list, if that is a shocker, it doesn't matter where the Nifty would be, then that's when SBI.
But Ekta, what's your sense? You've been speaking to analysts all across on the street. What is the rough watch list whisper number or assumptions?
There's no whisper number for a watch list. There's only an estimate for slippages. So that's what came through. The worst end of the slippages came through.
Their restructured book was 48,000 crore. And 30,000 crore has been declared as additional slippages. So perhaps a large part of the restructured book which had to go has gone, I would think. But as Ekta says, now instead of speculating, let's wait for the commentary. The market has given its verdict now, and as Anuj says, because it's in a cheerful mood, the verdict has been a very pleasant one. The stock has not got it over the chin. And we'll have to wait after the press conference, what are the new data that the market has to react to.
Okay, so that's State Bank of India at the end of Q4. We are, of course, standing by to get more asset quality internals and details. Just to go back to the market has been holding its ground very, very smartly over the last couple of minutes. Let's just pull up Europe as well, quickly recap the rest of the cues that we are dealing with. European markets right now slightly tentative. Have been not much of a slide, but the color is red, at least for now. Dow futures are flat. Let's not forget that we'll also hear from the Fed chief today, the Fed chair herself. She's, I think, getting an award at Harvard. So the market wants to know what her tonality is going to be in terms of the other big global cue, which is the Fed's next move. Anuj, final thoughts on the market before we wrap up business lunch?
Yeah, I tell you something, the market surged a lot and after that has pulled back a bit. Key is today another trend day. It's a trend week for the market. So the bears have been taken to cleaners, and I think the last remaining bears are in the process of being cleaned up right now, and that process is continuing. My only submission is that 8180 for me is an extremely important mark. On the way down, it was a massive support 2 or 3 times. The risk reward, if you missed out this rally, the temptation would be to now participate, but this could well be a case where you might be trying to catch a bus which is running too fast. So maybe you got to wait for the next bus that will come. Market always gives you opportunities. It will always correct. It corrected in May. It may well correct in month of June and give you an opportunity to enter. So that could happen somewhere around 8180. That's my submission. And let's see. I mean, Monday onwards, market will have to also realize that there are some global risks as well. But as of now, clearly bulls in total command.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll wrap up this edition of Business Lunch. Thanks so much for being with us. Midcap Radar will carry the action forward.